Welcome to the Israel Illuminated channel. Today we will explore the biblical meaning of being grafted into the Commonwealth of Israel as presented in Ephesians 2:12. Some have reacted strongly, often emotionally, to use the phrase, the Commonwealth of Israel, to describe the body of Messiah. The objection usually sounds like this: I am a Christian. Why would you call me an Israeli? My salvation has nothing to do with the modern state of Israel. But this response rests on a fundamental misunderstanding. The term Commonwealth of Israel is not necessarily a reference to the modern political state of Israel in its current condition, but to a biblical covenantal reality rooted in Scripture and articulated most clearly by the Apostle Paul. Furthermore, the current political state of Israel's condition still does not negate it from the promise. Writing to a mixed Jewish and Gentile community in Ephesus, Paul reminds Gentile believers of their former condition. Remember that you were at that time separate from Christ, excluded from the Commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world, written in Ephesians 2:12. The phrase Paul uses, the Commonwealth of Israel, is unmistakably covenantal. The King James Version paraphrases it as the Commonwealth of Israel, while the complete Jewish Bible renders it, the national life of Israel. Whatever the translation, the meaning is clear. Prior to Messiah, Gentiles were outside Israel's covenantal sphere and without any hope. Did you hear that? No hope without Israel's covenants. Paul does not say they were outside the church, but outside Israel. By the Commonwealth of Israel, then, is referring to the reunified people of God in Messiah, the restored family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, composed of both physical descendants, the Jews, and those brought in by faith, the Gentiles. This includes the restored 12 tribes of Israel and the mixed Gentile multitude who, like Ruth, a Gentile that attached themselves not merely to Israel's blessings, but to Israel's people, covenants, land, and God. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God, described in Ruth 1:16. This pattern of covenantal inclusion is not new. When a Gentile comes to faith in Israel's Messiah, he or she is adopted into Israel's family, just as Ephraim and Manasseh, the Egyptian sons of Joseph, were adopted by Jacob and made full heirs of the covenant in Genesis chapter 48. Adoption does not erase origin. It establishes belonging. Paul expands this truth powerfully in Ephesians 2:11-19. Gentiles were once foreigners to the covenants, but through the blood of Messiah they have been brought near. Messiah himself has made peace, not by erasing distinction, but by breaking down the dividing wall that separated Jew and Gentile, creating one new humanity in himself. The result is not Gentiles becoming Jews, nor Jews becoming Gentiles, but both becoming reconciled to God in one body. Paul's conclusion is decisive. So then, you are no longer foreigners and strangers. On the contrary, you are fellow citizens with God's people and members of God's family, written in Ephesians 2:19. But fellow citizens of what? Of Israel. Gentiles do not become an alternative people of God. They become fellow citizens alongside Israel. This is why Paul later describes the great mystery of the gospel, not as Israel's replacement, but as Gentile inclusion. That the Gentiles are fellow heirs, fellow members of the body, and fellow partakers of the promise in Messiah Yeshua, according to Ephesians 3:6. Romans chapter 11 reinforces this same reality through the olive tree metaphor. Israel is the cultivated tree rooted in the promises made to Abraham. Some natural branch Jews were broken off due to unbelief, and wild branches, Gentiles, were grafted in. Yet the wild branch Gentiles never become the natural branch Jews, and they are sternly warned not to boast over them in Romans 11:17-24. The tree remains Israel's covenantal tree. Gentiles share in its nourishment by grace. This framework guards against replacement theology, the idea that the church has supplanted Israel and permanently inherited her promises. Paul explicitly rejects this notion. Has God rejected his people? May it never be. Written in Romans 11:1. Israel's calling is not revoked, for the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable, according to Romans 11, verse 29. Paul foresees a future restoration in which all Israel will be saved in Romans 11, verse 26, fulfilling the covenant promises, including land inheritance, spoken in Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 to 10. Crucially, Paul maintains identity distinction throughout. Jews remain Jews. Gentiles remain Gentiles, even in Messiah. He instructs believers, was anyone called while circumcised? He should not become uncircumcised. Was anyone called while uncircumcised? He should not be circumcised, shown in 1 Corinthians 7:18. Paul's actions confirm this theology. He circumcised Timothy, who was Jewish in Acts 16:1-3, but refused to circumcise Titus, who was Gentile in Galatians 2:3-5. Same apostle, same gospel, different covenantal obligations or sanctification processes, but still saved under one Messiah. This is why Romans 15:10 is so important when it clearly states, "Rejoice, O Gentiles, with his people." His people are clearly referring to the Jewish Israeli people. Gentiles rejoice with Israel, not as Israel, not instead of Israel, but alongside Israel. Paul frames this praise by affirming that Messiah serves the circumcised to confirm the promises to the patriarchs, while Gentiles glorify God for mercy in Romans 15:8-9. Shared worship, not identity collapse. A helpful way to visualize this biblical reality is through the analogy of the British Commonwealth. Britain remains the historic mother nation, yet it does not dissolve into the Commonwealth nor dominate it. Member nations remain distinct, independent, and culturally diverse, while sharing a common allegiance and inheritance. So it is with the Commonwealth of Israel. Israel remains the covenantal center, chosen, called, and trusted with the oracles of God, described in Romans 3:1-2. Gentile believers remain from the nations, yet are joined to Israel's covenants and share allegiance to Israel's Messiah. Unity does not require sameness. Inclusion does not require erasure. The prophets foresaw this final form of the olive tree, a messianic kingdom in which Israel, restored and redeemed, blesses the nations, and the nations stream to Zion to worship the God of Israel, written in Isaiah 2:2-4, Zechariah 8:20-23, and Zechariah 14. This is not a fringe idea, it is one of the clearest themes in the New Testament, once later replacement theology lenses are removed. The apostles never erase Jewish identity, never convert Gentiles into Jews, and never divide salvation into two paths. Instead, they hold distinction and unity together. One Messiah, one salvation, one people of God, ordered covenantally as the Commonwealth of Israel. Thank you for watching the Israel Illuminated channel. If you like our channel, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.